All right, welcome to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead, pour white lightning straight onto your brain. And today, going to try and get it on a more regular schedule here. So, Tuesday recording, Wheel of Time, reread. We are on chapter 26 in the Fires of Heaven, page 439 in our paperback editions here.
Yeah, and if we get on that schedule, Tuesday should be the day unless we end up with something we have to edit on that, like the video
Yeah,
goes wrong and I got to clip it apart or whatever.
yeah,
We don't edit content, but at the same time, we've had recording issues where I've had to piece together several recordings and
right.
stuff like that. So if it comes out on a Wednesday, that means something like that happened, and you'll probably see the hiccups. But
All right, so we've got 3 chapters here where we go back to Siuan and Min and Leane, and then uh, Gareth Bryne, and really kind of the culmination of their story that started at the end of the last book, uh, leaving the White Tower after the Civil War there, and so kind of right off the bat, good thing, bad thing to me that jumps out at the beginning of this chapter is um I like the way he's reintroducing Min and building her because she's going to be an even bigger part of especially the main story, Rand's story going forward. So he's building her back up because we saw her and then she disappeared for a while and then she was pretty important in uh, brain fart, Great Hunt, but then at the beginning of the Dragon Reborn, she kind of disappears and then she doesn't show up again until much later, because she's on her way to the White Tower. And now, as that kind of smaller story of Siuan's is, converging with the story of the other ladies, uh, then she's going becoming more and more prominent. So I like the way he's building her, and that kind of contrasts with me of Logain. Um, I don't know exactly why they did it, but I wondered when we the series first opened and it opened with Logain, and I was wondering, are they doing this just to set the stage for the dragon, or are they making, and then as he continued to show up and he just kind of see him he's mentioned and then you kind of see him in the distance in the book The Eye of the World. um and I think he should have been a little more prominent, especially with Min's viewing of that halo of greatness. Logain is an instance where I feel like, as we've mentioned before, I think something that would have helped kind of knit everything tighter together is later on when he introduces new characters. If instead he would have used characters that he'd already introduced to tell that story of why don't we see more of Logain when other stuff starts to happen later instead of introducing new characters.
mhm.
We kind of he pops in and it's, oh hey, Logain's back, and something important is happening here, and then he kind of disappears again. You know, kind of like what happened with Min, except with Min, when he reintroduces her, he steadily builds her back up.
I th- yeah, I don't want to go into spoilers, but I think we
Yeah.
do get some of that later. It's I don't think enough. Well, it's again we're nitpicking on a
Uh-huh.
14 book series, and what was enough, what was not enough, and you know he could have always added pages to make things make more sense, but then we would have got lost in the details even more.
Right.
And as Scott said from our last video, the deeper you get into the series, the more difficult it becomes to separate what happens in which book.
Right.
And he is right. Sorry, he said, "Sorry, bud. China Grove was Doobie Brothers, not Boston." I can't believe I brain farted like that. I have my Boston station on my Spotify. That is, I mean, not Boston. I said it again, my Doobie Brothers station on Spotify that plays nothing but Doobie Brothers, and I feel ashamed of myself.
As you should.
I should. I should for that one. Yes.
I like that Jordan is kind of reminding us, reinforcing us about Siuan's character flaws here, because it's about to, in the next chapter, it's going to kind of be inverted, turned on its head, when in the next chapter, when Siuan and Leane start trying to play the other Aes Sedai, because at the bottom of 441, one of Siuan's failings is that Siuan refused to understand or believe however many times she told her, and so did Leane. It would not have mattered if she had not seen the aura since her first viewing of it in Tar Valon. Had Logain been lying in the road, rasping his death rattle, she would have wagered all she had and more on a miraculous recovery somehow. So it's either because I feel like it's something she doesn't understand and can't control, and that's a big reason why Siuan can't make herself believe that, it's not going to change. We saw this previously, when Min was masquerading as Elmendrada in the tower, and she thought, aha, I've circumvented this viewing. No, you didn't, but Min couldn't tell Siuan that because it wouldn't have mattered. She wouldn't have listened.
Well, I mean, just in her dealings with the tower, period. She had that death grip on it when it was a bar of soap and it popped right out.
That's a good analogy, yeah, because that's what it was. But I don't want to get too far ahead here, but she's able to flip that on its head when she has to. Bella the Wonder Horse. This is interesting to me, and I think he hinted at this with Gareth Bryne, that Siuan was afraid that he would recognize her, but he didn't. And he reinforces it here of, because they've been stilled, that their faces have changed because they've lost the agelessness, so much so that some of their closest confidants and colleagues don't even recognize them when they're in the same room. And a hallmark of great writing, and something, again, part of my point in doing this was to contrast with the crap that we've got now, and the Woke of Time series was a good example of that. Is scenes are just scenes. It's not crafting a story, it's manipulating the audience. And I think J.J. Abrams is the worst of this, and not just because of how big he's become, but because of how big he's become, he now has like a coaching tree. Like you see, all these coaches come from like Shanahan, and he even, I think, didn't he come from Walsh? Wasn't he on Walsh's staff? Anyway, so you'll see with really good coaches, they will have assistants go off and have success, because of their success and because of what they learned there under that coach. And you have that with Bad Robot and Jar Jar Abrams in a negative way, that people have been so influenced by him, and he says it unabashedly, that the whole point of the mystery box, his terms, is to trick you, is to hook you. So, what's in the box, so that you want to know. And it doesn't matter what's in the box. There might be nothing in the box. He probably doesn't know what's in the box yet. He'll figure it out down the road. And he makes movies to be flashes, to be instances. If you've ever noticed that movies and shows now seem more like an extended trailer than an actual story with an arc, with your traditional arc, that's on purpose. They just want to mesmerize you. So they're not storytellers, they're carnival barkers.
Well, part of that is, I mean, it's chicken or egg on this one, but the snowball's already going. The attention span of
Yes.
each generation grows less and less and less. So much so that even look at go find an old news broadcast and then contrast it next to a new one. They actually flash lights under the people talking and stuff just because it gathers your attention more, because they were losing audiences by just having people tell the news. So there's all these subtle cues in there that keep your face on the screen because people are more likely to nowadays.
And so that roundabout tangent was to say that a scene should have a purpose to the story, and ideally more than one. So this scene here is not only advancing Siuan and Min's plot, it's advancing the White Tower Schism plot, but it's also doing duty in world building, because Jordan is giving you hints here about something that's going to be explicitly talked about later, which is the ageless look and what that is and how it comes about. And, there are ramifications in what that means. And he has given you hints before, and this is a much deeper exploration of it while not discussing it directly. So it's also a handy tool because it helps make the scene more interesting as the Aes Sedai kind of gang up on Min because they have no idea who these other two young women are. So they assume Min is in charge here. And she's flabbergasted.
Yeah, does Min officially look older than the other two? Because I know she was older than Matt and Rand.
Yeah, I kind of get the impression that Siuan and Leane look very young. I think we'll see it more when other people come into Salidar and meet them for the first time after they've been stilled. I think we'll get it a little more. Um, so moving along here, so page 449 is when he kind of starts to turn Siuan's stubborn, controlling nature on its head. That she's instantly deferential. So she's read the room, but also more interestingly, we never see any conversation about this, but her and Leane both not only read the room, but then immediately slip into complementary roles. With without supporting each other and with uh playing this kind of good cop bad cop and we're not on the same side anymore kind of thing.
Okay, she's only 3 years older than Rand, so that puts her at about 24 here.
You have any more thoughts on this chapter?
It's politics, not my favorite thing. No, it is a lot of setup because they're kind of giving you, he's slightly starting to give you the hierarchy
Uh-huh.
of Salidar, and that actually is quite an important thing to pay attention to. So my real thoughts on that is if you kind of don't have that in the top of your mind when you read these interactions, then you probably should reread this chapter.
Yeah. So something that kind of jumps out to me at the beginning of chapter 27 here, where we switch back to Siuan's POV, is kind of the interesting dynamic here. And I like the use of Siuan as the point of view here because of the terminology she uses, the nautical allusions. You are rudderless, and you especially see it later with how Siuan and Leane are treated since they are no longer Aes Sedai, and how much farther beneath them the Aes Sedai feel that they are. That these are people who have an air of arrogance because they literally stand above the nobility of the land.
Yeah,
That
we're going to go into othering and in groups and out groups on the in the social chapter,
Mhm.
social episode this week, but this is first order of business. You're Aes Sedai or you're not, and then everything else has its
Yeah,
separations after that. And if you can't channel, well, obviously you're not Aes Sedai. No matter if you
yeah,
were or not, no matter if you're a Merlin seat, no matter what,
exactly.
they have
And
a
the
automatically become an other, and an other to be pitied in this case.
when just a few months ago they were the two most powerful people in the known world.
Mhm.
Um, but despite that, Siuan is able to direct them. She doesn't lead them because she knows she can't. That's why she immediately slips into manipulation, but she's still able to direct them to get them to go in the direction she wants because, as she says, they're rudderless. That no matter your strengths, no matter your station, if you don't have a direction, if you don't have a purpose, you can be easily led.
Well, especially if you're fighting within yourself.
That too, which is one of the reasons there's rudderless, is because there's no one hand on the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
So that this kind of uh cabal of six, six women is kind of the council, but there's no formality to it like there is with the hall. Um, and all of them have their own opinions. None of them really have an idea of what they should do next. So it helps Siuan, and it's how she's able to, make her manipulation works because she immediately notices that. What was the other thought I had here? Okay, so page 458 is where she drops her big bombshell about Logain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, am I right in assuming that from the get-go, you're supposed to assume, but it's never revealed? And I think that's on purpose because Siuan is so secretive that, you know, she's not going to say the quiet part out loud, so neither is Jordan. But when it at the end of the chapter, when she goes out and she tells Min to not let Logain talk to anyone yet, to me that's a clear indication that this is a total fabrication.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reader is supposed to know that. But there are some things I want to talk about in spoilers about that. because even though it's a total fabrication, there's a reason it works, and I'm not sure Siuan knows about those things that you have to piece together over the whole of the series, or read New Spring and the Big White Book. We'll let you know kind of more explicitly about what I'm talking about there. All right, but moving along.
Well, if it's from New Spring, Moiraine might know something in their little Lesbo section after Shinar. He probably told her everything.
Why did you say that?
Because I hate you. That's why.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Moiraine, since she experienced it more directly, and they probably were communicating, because you do find out more as Siuan kind of reveals more about the history of the tower, and that's how they set themselves up is, all right, we too are the only ones who know that the dragon has been reborn. Siuan, I'm going to stay here in the tower and be our person in the tower. But somebody's got to go out there and do the looking. So Moiraine is going to be the one that's always away from the tower, scouring the world for clues to figure out what is what here. And so they could have traded information and pieced some of this together. All right.
Well, I think even at one point when she was still in her old position, it showed her through her point of view reading coded text from Moiraine.
Yeah.
So well, it is a bombshell that she can get away with because there are no Reds there. There is nobody to defend themselves.
Yep. And then we get an Leane who comes in, which is great because we've missed the doobie doos. Doobie doo.
Which one is she?
I
forget all who that.
It's one of Sheriam's warders who comes in.
Oh, that's right.
To tell them that there are people approaching, and
one of Sheriam's warders.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think
Sheriam only has one.
Oh, you're right.
You thinking Myril?
Yeah, I think it's one of Myril's warders. You're right. That it do be Gareth Bryne doobie doo. I
hope he doesn't die, because then Lan would have to show his feelings.
Oh, jeez. Stop. Make it stop. So, again, this scene is doing multiple things, which I love. One, the way he crafts the scene is just amusing and entertaining, of how the warders come in and drop this bombshell, but he's also letting you know that not just Gareth Bryne, but the old veterans with him are pretty badass. And just casually mentioned that some of them may have seen us, which warders are, high speed special forces guys, and they have their, magical predator cloaks. And yet they may have been seen, which is a big deal. And then where is it? And then the other thing it does is it's giving you more about Siuan and kind of how she's changing a little bit when she completely loses her composure of send them away or kill them, because that immediately makes all the Aes Sedai go, why? Why would you say that? And so she has to kind of reveal what's going on there. And because, and another thing it's doing is so we kind of see, the back and forth, that there are no perfect characters here. And so Siuan loses her composure, which is amusing, as well as telling you something about her. but it also reinforces how good she is at what she does, because the uh the Aes Sedai immediately kind of figure out what's going on here, because it's not just, well, that was odd. It's on 469. You know why he is here. Sheriam's voice was calmly certain. Both of you do, and you do not want to confront him. Enough so that you would have us kill him for you. So she's he he's showing us a flaw, and then at the same time showing us how good she is, because she's not duping dummies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually part of the as the story goes on with this whole group and with Aes Sedai in general, I think Jordan did go overboard in trying to show their flaws,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually does make them look like dummies in a lot of instances, especially when they're confronted by wise ones or sea folk, wind finders, and all of that.
Yeah,
And he does, I think, overly put them in their place.
right.
They were arrogant, but they weren't stupid.
Exactly. It's where they uh get embarrassed, like with the wise ones or with the sea folk, or with some others, is because they have that fatal flaw of so many, which is a narrowed focus, because you're so arrogant
Mm-hmm.
that you're not considering what others might do. You're not considering things outside of your sphere, and so you get blindsided.
And
um
let's continue this one in spoilers
yeah,
because we'd have to talk about stuff.
but you should still be able to get some wins, because you're not a dummy.
Mm-hmm.
You should still be able to react like Sheriam does here when Siuan loses her composure. She immediately is able to react in a competent way. And I
Mm-hmm.
found the thing I was looking for because of doobie doobie doo, page 468. Most of the writers do be stopped, but one does come on by himself. If my aged mother did say different, I would still name him Gareth Bryne from the glimpse I did get. Doobie doobie doo. Um, and then he builds up Bryne some more. Uh, he kind of sets the stage of what's going on in Salidar some more, with the warder explaining, you know, you got a great captain here. Why not convince him to join us? And Sheriam asked quietly, "Do you think that we will need a great captain then?" Nuhel and Erenvar did not look at one another, but Siuan still had the feeling that they had exchanged glances. "It is your decision, Sheriam," Erenvar replied just as quietly, "yours and the other sisters. But if you mean to return to the tower, we could use him." So as they mutter after the warders leave, I guess we weren't fooling the warders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know what's going on. Um, okay. Um,
Is that coming through the mic?
that rumble.
Uh-huh.
What was
Is it?
that?
That's my stomach and gut. It's having trouble adapting to these first few days of sober October.
Oh no, the
Yeah.
humanity.
So
Um, I like that, and I mentioned this before the last time we got a point of view from him, is that I like when we get the points of view from some of the smaller side characters to really flesh them out more. Um, uh, it's gonna happen a little later. I've been kind of looking forward to it's not his point of view, but we get more fleshing out of Galad here in a few chapters, which before we've only really ever heard about him. Same thing with Gareth Bryne. We keep hearing about him, and so we hear his reputation, and it's actually a little bit dangerous of a thing to do, because Jordan is breaking that rule, kind of show don't tell, because he's telling us about Gareth Bryne. But he is also kind of showing us, because he's showing us that he has this reputation in the eyes of others, in the opinions of others.
mhm.
Well, he set that up, and now he really has to show us for real because it's from his point of view, and it can be hard to live up to. It's why things like Lovecraft Lovecraft doesn't really translate well to the screen because he always describes his monsters as these undescribable horrors
Mhm.
because he's playing on your emotions, your psychology,
To
rather than
imagine the worst thing.
let you imagine the figs and mice. He's not going to describe what he's doing with the figs and mice. He's just telling you how the character feels and reacts based on what he's seeing. He never actually shows you what he sees. All right, so if it's this indescribable, this worst horror you can imagine, well, how do you live up to that putting it on the screen? And I think Jordan does a good job
Well,
of living
there's
up
an
to his
easy
own
way to
hype.
do it. Take a note from Jaws, the original.
Mhm.
Don't actually put it on screen.
Yeah. Uh, but I think he does a good job of living up to the hype of, you know, the big thing is, and why he's a great captain is because he's so calm. I can't remember who who said, I think it was Shelby Foote talking about Ulysses Grant, that uh that what made him such a good general and why he was so loved by his subordinates is because he was so calm. As Shelby Foote said, he had, you know, 2 o'clock in the morning calm, that you could wake him up at 2 o'clock in the morning and tell him that the enemy had just turned his left flank, and he would calmly begin issuing orders, that he would never panic. And you see that from inside Gareth Bryne's eyes of he's calmly calculating everything that's going on. And as he goes into the town, as he sees all the warders, and he thinks, I may not get out of here alive. If I don't like what they have to say to me and they don't like what I have to say back to them, they could very well kill me. And his primary concern is that I hope the boys can get away. I hope my men can get away and don't get caught up in this.
Mm-hmm. Especially because he's very well aware that realistically, the only reason he came this way was personal.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, they chose to follow him, but he didn't want them to.
Yeah.
It's for this reason. Not that
Yeah.
he knew this was coming, but that something bad could happen.
That okay, yes, he's the lord of the land, and he's had these prisoners escape, and so he is in some part responsible for bringing these people to justice, but he's not personally responsible to go after them. And we see from some of his earlier points of view that he knows this is silly. He keeps asking himself, why am I doing this? Um, so he knows that it's personal. And one of the things I like is just as soon as the Aes Sedai start talking, he's gauging who's in charge. He's gauging the power dynamics here, and he recognizes that he's being played, even if he doesn't know what the game is. He knows he's being played. He knows that everything they say and the way they say it is calculated to give them an advantage and put him off balance. Um, and even when they drop the big bomb of that Siuan Sanche, which legitimately does shock him, he doesn't let it affect him. So he's not. You hear over and over if you watch interviews with combat veterans, um, and I always go back to this. One of the best is with Dick Winters, um, that they did for Band of Brothers, and they play the clips before the episodes, is him talking about fear, and that every man is afraid and every man has to find for himself how to deal with that. That, courage isn't not having fear. That's irrational. If you don't have fear, there's something psychologically wrong with you, right? That no, you're supposed to have that. That's a mechanism that is hardwired into your brain. It's how are you going to deal with it? So they just sucker punched him, and the blow landed, And we know from his thoughts that, yeah, they knocked him off balance here, but he's not going to let it affect him. He's still going to uh calmly issue his orders, or in this case, issue his demands of, okay, I will swear the oath that you want me to, and I will serve you, but these are my requirements. I'm not going to do it blindly. And, in the back of his mind, he knows that they're probably not going to let him walk out of here, but
Mhm.
he gives them the ultimatum of, these are my requirements or I leave. Uh, so the bottom of 473 is a good example of what I'm talking about here. Because in his mind, he's thinking, this was foolish. He should apologize for disturbing them and leave. And that was foolish too. He had known before Droman reached him in the street that he was unlikely to leave Salidar alive. There were probably 50 warders in the forest around where he had left his men, if not 100. Joni and the others would give a good account of themselves, but he had not brought them all this way to die. Yet if he was a fool to have let a pair of eyes lure him into this trap, he might as well go the last mile for it. Uh, dooby. Do you have any more thoughts on this?
No, I'm trying to remember what exactly the three demands he made were.
Um,
Oh, these are my conditions.
yeah.
First command is mine. Uh, he assigns them the men, promotes them. That's all the same. What was the second and third? Second was not be blind. What was the third?
Um,
That they follow through, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
that they follow through. Yeah, there it is at the bottom of 476. Third, if you begin this, you will stay the course. I will be putting my head in a noose, and every man who follows along with me. And should you decide half a year from now that Elida as Amarilyn is preferable to war, you will pull that noose tight for every one of us who can be hunted down. The nations may stay out of a civil war in the tower, but they'll not let us live if you abandon us. Elida will see to that. Um, and even before that, though, the paragraph before that is great too, because they've been having this banter back and forth that's all about, basically, how did you find us? Why are you here? And the story that they already knew of what Siuan and Leane had done. Um, and he gives them his own sucker punch, so much so that he breaks that legendary Aes Sedai calm as uh, the White Tower is broken, he said flatly. Those Aes Sedai's widened, but he gave them no chance to speak. So he's analyzed the situation and he knows what's going on. And I think Jordan has done enough work here with Bryne and his point of view that this works because it's not a contrivance. It's not, I need him to be cool, so I'm going to have him lay all this out and have figured out that the White Tower has split and the White Tower is broken and the jaws have split. Um, he's done the legwork to set up that Bryne has these capabilities, that he has the mind to figure this out. So it's perfectly believable.
Mm-hmm.
My throat still hurts. Okay.
It's still coming through. I turned the gain down.
You need more protein.
I just ate a bunch of eggs.
Um, so I like the interaction there once the little council finally breaks up and Siuan and Bryne have a moment uh to each other. Oh no, this is when they're over discussing his conditions. Um this is I'm going to bring this up here because it's something we're going to talk about a fair bit in this book and coming up soon here with back to Rand is so at the bottom of 477, I like that he's setting up a sexual tension and a growing affection for Siuan, but he never uses those terms because Bryne seems like the kind of person who wouldn't think about it in those terms and wouldn't necessarily let himself think about it. So Siuan asked why he followed him for an oath for a pair of blue eyes. Siuan Sanche could not be more than 10 years younger than he, but it was hard to remember that she was Siuan Sanche while looking at a face near 30 years younger. The eyes were the same though, deep blue and strong. So he's checking her out. It's he's saying out loud for an oath, and in his mind he's saying, "'Cause you're pretty."
And strong. Come on.
Yeah.
Don't be such a misogynist over there.
No, and that actually is part of the conversation. That's what I was getting to, is I like that it's Saki's back around, and Jordan lets us know that yeah, Bryne did know, he just didn't recognize Siuan as Siuan. But no, he remembered the scene that Siuan talked about, a book ago when we first saw them, with Gareth Bryne, and he wants to know why. Now the tables have kind of turned, and he wants to know why you felt the need to smack me down like that. And but he's also giving us more of Siuan here, is that I don't know if it's the power dynamic that she's so prickly because she doesn't like being an underling, and she takes it to achieve her goal with the Aes Sedai, but she's immediately prickly with Bryne, and I wonder if it's because of the power dynamic, and that rubs her the wrong way.
I think that's part of it, but let's face it, people don't like getting caught in their own bullshit.
True, because she does the am I allowed to say she does the woman thing, or will that get us in trouble?
That would get us in trouble.
He asks her a legitimate question. He asks it calmly, and just wants to know. Oh wait, no, she brings it up. She immediately assumes the worst in him. She assumes negative reasons for what he's doing, and when she should know better, because she should know his reputation of, you are taking pleasure from this, aren't you? Siuan said fiercely the moment his eyes moved. You buzzard, burn you for a carp-brained fool. Now that you know who I am, it pleases you that I'll have to bow and scrape to you. Why? Is it because I made you back down over Mirandy? Are you so small, Gareth Bryne? She should know darn well, based on his reputation and her few interactions with him in the past, that no, he's not that kind of person. But she feels backed into a corner, and she knows, as you say, she knows she's done wrong. And so she's immediately turning it back and being accusatory to the other person.
Yeah, it's the old, yeah, I screwed up, but it's your fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is that thing about your past that supports my point, even though it has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and we eventually get to that of so they argue, and then Leane, I've never heard of him. He cannot be succeeding yet. He died. Scarlet spots appeared in her cheeks, and she seemed to struggle with herself. A month after I left Camelin, she muttered, some Andoran farmer put an arrow through him on a sheep raid. Oops. So she's all indignant and high and mighty that, you know, you could have ruined months of planning, and then it all came for naught because he was stealing some farmer's sheep and he got shot.
The best laid plans.
Okay. Da-ba-da-ba-da.
No, but I think yeah, the saying the woman thing is the wrong thing. It's the manipulator thing.
Yeah.
And we can talk motives, and but let's face it, for the last, she was what, in Merlin for 20 years, and then she got to that position because of her skills. She's a master manipulator.
Yes. Yeah, you see
and
it politicians all the time. Yeah.
yeah, we go no further than our current politicians. When they're called on their bullshit, it's no, it's your fault. What did I do? It's
Um oh yeah, and then we end with the vision of you need to stay close to Gareth Bryne or you'll both die. I do like we get a little more world building here and the understanding of men. So we're at the bottom of page 484 here. If you want to stay alive, you had better stay close to him. Despite the heat, Min shivered. She had only ever had one other viewing with an if in it, and both had been potentially deadly. All I know is this: if he stays close to you, you live. If he gets too far away for too long, you are going to die, both of you. Um, and then Siuan immediately pawns off the chores she's supposed to be doing to
mhm.
Min. All right, so that's those three chapters, and then we get back to and then we get back to Rand. So I want to stop there because that's going to be a big one because the thing happens.
All right.
So let's pause there for a second, and then we'll get into spoilers. Okay, so now on to the spoilers, and hopefully I can remember what I was going to say.
You brought up the fabrication. We talked about Aes Sedai arrogance. We talked about Aegis look.
Hmm. Well, I remember
Maybe something about Logain and
yeah, when I was talking about Logain, you do get him more, but I felt like we needed him more when we start to get into the Black Tower, because Jordan, especially in the last few books that Jordan himself wrote, you, he sets up this factionalization within the Black Tower, but he doesn't really show it until it all kind of comes to a head.
Mhm.
And I thought like I kind of understand why he did it, but I wish he would have used someone he'd already introduced, which is, and I think I've mentioned this before, the guy that ends up um uh like bonding and she bonds him, of the red sister.
Oh yeah, the was he the one that was really weak except could make gateways like crazy?
Exactly. He had
Yeah.
this weird talent of making gates. Um so that was one of those instances where I thought we don't need another character here, especially one who becomes so prominent that most of the Black Tower stuff that happens is told through his eyes, and we've never met him before.
Mhm.
And so we kind of lose a little bit of Logain there. When he's setting him up here, so we see him here, and then I can't remember when he escapes. I think it's in the next book. Um,
No,
and then he
well, I don't
disappears
know which
until
book, but it's when they're traveling.
Yeah. So I think
Okay.
it's the next book because it's before the weather is fixed. I think it's before the snows have started. And then I think it's the end of Path of Daggers. I think it's the epilogue of Path of Daggers when we see him at the Black Tower, capturing the Red Sisters.
Yeah, because isn't he let? No, he's not let go. He's let go by
Egwene,
Egwene.
Egwene
Yeah,
arranges to let him escape. Yeah.
yeah. For some reason, I was thinking of the transgender girl, the only true
But
transgender girl in this.
but that's what I meant about Logain is the scenes we have of him are good, but I just feel like there's not enough there to satisfy the vision of men. It's more implied than it is shown.
Well, it's one of those things that you can see what Jordan was doing, but he kind of fumbled a little bit.
Yeah.
Like when you do get reintroduced to him in the Black Tower, he's already established there. There's no him going to the tower. There's no meeting with Tame or any of that. He's already got his little cohorts. He's established. He's already gotten rank. And he's doing big things already. He's just not one of the posse.
Mm-hmm.
There was no in between. You're just kind of like fast forward. 3 months later, goes across the bottom of the screen,
Yeah.
and again, we would just have 15 books instead of 14 if these things went in there. But uh, uh, it does seem that that was one thing he fumbled on a little bit.
Yeah. What else did we have?
Uh, well, there was the debate. You were talking about the ageless face and being stilled on the start of the debate on whether that was actually the oath rod being uncoupled with the Aes Sedai versus the actual power.
You know, we that's pretty definitively said in the books, and I'm mostly sure he confirmed that in Q&As that yes, it's the oath rod that creates the ageless look. And so it's the stilling broke the oaths, and that's what breaks the ageless look.
Okay,
Um,
then expand upon what you were thinking would be spoilery about the fabrication. Uh, then we could talk a little arrogance, and
I
and
don't
then
know.
and then we'll go into comments. You don't remember?
I don't remember.
You
What
said
was I?
you said there was two parts. There was something that was here that was obvious, and then something that would be spoilery.
Oh, uh, oh, that I think that was the link between um the oath rod and shortening their lifespans. So
No, it
he's
was
given.
about the Red Sisters
Oh,
and the
oh, oh,
yeah.
oh, that. Okay, so that was different. No, about the oath rod, that thought was just that he's giving us a bigger piece
Mhm.
of this that he's kind of hinted at about the ageless look and the oath rod, and then there's going to be more of it. You know, he's gonna kind of peel back more layers of the onion when we get to the oh, what are they called? The group of healer ladies in the place where Matt keeps getting raped. Hashtag me too. Can't wait
The
till we get
kin,
there.
the kin.
Yeah, they can. Um, okay. So the spoilery part about the Red Sisters and why I wonder if how much Siuan knew and if she knew that uh because this was a gamble in that all that she had to go on. Well, there's a couple of things that make this a big gamble. Is that all she has to go on is Logain's word, and the what's going to convince other people is if Aes Sedai say outright something about believing his story. Okay, but then the White Tower could just do the same thing as so far as they're concerned, no, and their they can have their sisters say outright, no, this isn't true. Now, granted, that would kind of break the tower because you have sisters who cannot lie, saying polar opposites. Um, but I wonder if she knew to some degree that the Red Sisters weren't going to address this because of the what is it that she says? Where is that? Uh where she has, how oh no, it's something Cadsuan says later that I think is our first clue to this until we get New Spring. Uh of when Cadsuan asks how much were you involved in that unpleasantness after the Aiel War? And it's hinted at, which is one of the reasons it's weird that Siuan is so adamant the Black Ajah doesn't exist. It's hinted that Moraine and Siuan knew that the dark side was after them because of well, doesn't Moraine say that the Black Ajah must have gotten a hold of her and tortured her to death, but she managed to keep our names out of it? I think she does. So I think Moraine had to know the Black Ajah was definitely real.
Mm-hmm.
But the Black Ajah used the Red Ajah to hunt down and still any channeler they could find, gentle any channeler they could find on the spot, because they were trying to preempt the dragon by gentling him. And there's a whole bunch that goes into that that's fun and interesting. I haven't read New Spring in a while. What did we say we were going to do that for? After Crown of Swords, because that's when it was published.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what we said.
So we'll go into it then. But that was the unpleasantness, and it was more than that. Is you had the Red Ajah blatantly breaking Tower Law by running around gentling anyone they could get their hands on without bringing them to the tower. And we actually got our first hint of this with Tom in the Eye of the World.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why the rereads are so fun, and why, I've got the comments up here, and as Scott says, the deeper you get into the series, the harder it is to keep track of what happens where. And that is true. But on the other hand, it also makes it so rich that you might not know until you reread that, oh, he was referring to that. Even when you read it down there, about the unpleasantness and what the Red Ajah was doing, you won't necessarily put the pieces together unless you have, a freakish brain to put those pieces, to remember that's what happened to Owen, Tom's nephew, is the Red Ajah found him, they gentled him on the spot, and then he leaves it ambiguous that I'm not sure if Owen lost the will to live and just died, or if because he could channel, the villagers were I got the impression that he was lynched.
I thought he said he lasted a couple months.
Okay.
But I could be.
There was something in that story about how he was kind of abused by the villagers because he could channel once they found out that he was a man who could channel even if he'd been gentled, that the villagers didn't treat him so well. Anyway, but
I'm sure the big book of cheats has it.
But a big reason why Siuan's lie works is because there are kernels of truth to it. Because, all right, the Red Ajah didn't set up Logain to be a false dragon because it would give them more prestige. But the Red Ajah had been up to some nasty shenanigans in the past. And so they can't really talk about it. Otherwise, they're going to reveal that the Ajah as a whole is kind of tainted.
Okay, well, we'll get more of it in the big book of cheats. So he was gentled on the spot. Tom got there too late. He had already begun to decline, so he wasn't lynched right away. the left to the untender mercies of his neighbor, he died.
Mhm.
So he wasn't. He basically
He
was shunned.
he
Is
wasn't cared for because nobody cared, because
yeah.
the villagers
Except
were,
for his
man from
wife,
channel.
who
Yeah.
who shortly followed him into the grave. He was the last man to die as the result of the male channeler program, known
Mhm.
as the Vileness. So Swan was right, even though she was lying at the
Mhm.
time. She
Yeah.
just didn't know she was right.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder how much she knew, or if she just took a big gamble here and, it came up Matt.
Mm-hmm.
She got lucky. What else was there?
We had touched on Aes Sedai arrogance.
Yeah, I think
Oh
you
yeah,
had more thoughts
because
about that.
because the spoilers were yeah when they go to the world of dreams,
Mm,
obviously they're going to be put in their place. You know, when they first meet the Windfinders and have no idea who they are in their society, there's a good chance they're going to be put in their place. But when it started being every situation where another group of channelers was around, including the kin,
mm,
started putting him in their place, it was over the top. You know, the story with that Hammer told after Matt beat Gawain and Galad, you know that's one thing, but 100, the swordsman, once they're already aware of this fact, will beat the farmer every time.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's I don't know. He kind of overdid that, I think.
yeah. Cadswin is the only one who seems immune to this.
Mm-hmm.
Is that she's able to deal with this, or at least she doesn't let on that she's flustered about not being able to deal with him, not being able to get exactly what she wants.
I almost wonder if it's that way to add to the realisticness of Egwene's rise to power,
Mm,
because
could be.
she is still a girl. You know, she's about 18 or so when she rises to the top. And character traits aside, quality character traits aside, that's still kind of an unrealistic heavy load.
Um. Okay. Well, you mentioned Egwene, and so I had to look because I knew Scott had said something. Um. That all right. Look, I know she's a very flawed character and not necessarily executed perfectly, but Egwene's last name could have been Borgia, not Alver, and it would have suited her character. That's a little harsh. That family was brutal. Uh there were actually two series about them. I think one was BBC and one was Showtime, I want to say. So the Showtime one had more boobies. Um and it was pretty medieval because it was. So it was nasty.
Mm-hmm. On speaking of covering huge distances, did we talk about the IL moving? Because I remember I made a comment of the vastness of their armies, not the ability of movement. That everything was just becoming so huge. But we've actually got modern trials now where when you put endurance trained humans against horses
Mm,
in a longer distance, we actually win. We're made for long distances compared to other animals. Now, horses can out sprint us anytime,
yeah.
but if you're going to go, I think the 100-mile race is the one we pretty much win every time. Not me as we as in me, we as in that ultra marathon runner that can
Right.
run a sub 5 minute mile for 26 miles.
Okay, that's a good point about Morgase that I hadn't considered is um it's not that she was sent home before she completed her training because she lacked the power. Yeah, I know that, but it is the the girls uh are an outlier because of what they're exposed to. It is important to remember that usually trainees don't find out about these things until they become full Aes Sedai, because there are things that Aes Sedai, and I think now that he mentions it, this may come up at some point, that there are things that the Aes Sedai do not want to admit to the world actually exist, like compulsion, because they already have a feared reputation and they don't want it out there that there's this forbidden weave that can make you do something, not convince you, but make you do something against your will.
Well,
So,
y'all are both gonna hate me, but I'm gonna blow up Scott's comment there because she did leave the towers and accepted, but so did Agelmar's sister, and she knew how to link channelers. So the last episode of season 1 told me. And isn't doesn't that didn't they go from the source material?
I'm glad I'm not doing sober October.
Sorry, Scott. I had to throw that one in there.
How did the Trollocs get there? There's a big logistical obstacle. I don't think so.
I assumed it had to do with gateways and
They can't use gateways, remember?
the force. Oh, that's right. Trollocs can't go through.
So that's how they could have gotten the humans there, the regular soldiers there. But they're still using the ways. They continue to use the ways up until
And they're pretty damn close to the
Rand.
spine at this point. And we know there's plenty of old steading in the spine.
That too. Where are they crossing?
In fact, don't they talk about a giant city in the mountains that they're looking at as they go through?
Yeah, but it's from the Age of Legends. So it's that old.
Oh, okay. So it wouldn't have a grove, an old grove in it that had
No,
that had
but
a
there are quite a few, and I can't find that map that I'd found at one point where somebody added in other things that we find out about, but that aren't on the maps in the books. But there are like a half dozen steading in the spine of the world. But the Zhengai Pass is not that far. I mean, yeah, that's hundreds of miles, but the Zhengai Pass is about on a latitude with Tar Valon. So it's pretty far north. It wouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility that, and because Trollocs can move, so it wouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility that you could have just walked them down, marched them down from, because you know where they're going to go once they start moving. And I can't remember it mentions it, but I think it's been a couple of weeks or close to it since they started moving from Ruhidin to follow what's his bucket,
Mhm.
Couladin. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that Samuel and his cronies could have set this in motion to get the Trollocs in place. Because whether you use the ways and start, move them in smaller groups of 50 to 100 is what is hypothesized that they could move without attracting too much attention from Machin Shin, and then build them up or just march them down from the waste. That if you stick to the foothills there's enough, as we found out in the Great Hunt, there's enough wide open unpopulated area there in that part of the world that even that wouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility.
Oh, wow. So I'm on this interactive map. Let me bring it up here. Hopefully it comes through well. And the green is steading, so you can actually show different things. So we take the steading out.
Nifty.
Portal stones. Well, there was a portal. That's the one that came to Rioting
Yeah.
on. Let me see. What else? I was hoping it would have waygates.
Well, ways are, you know that they're in all the steading, and then they're outside the major cities that were made by Ogier during the breaking or shortly after the breaking. That's nifty.
Well, we'll have to play with that with some of these other things, but let's see where the steading you were. So there's Rydian. Let's go back to showing steading. There's two steading there. Now the waygate would have to be outside. What it always did, right? Have to be outside the
Yeah, it
steading.
was just outside the steading.
Okay, so there's steading Tajing and steading Cantoine.
Hmm.
And so random them would have been about right here. So that's not that far away. They're steadying Handu.
Oh, there's the
Oh no,
Jangai
yeah,
Pass.
there's Jingai Pass. So where did they come from? Oh, so they had Cold Rock's Hold. Okay, here we go. Then they went to Imre Stand, right?
I,
Rydian, and then they had to go
that
north
is not
then.
where I thought that. I did not think that was there.
Yeah. But still, we got a steading right there. We got steading Mashong. We got a steading right here.
Hmm.
So we got three steading nearby. So we've got three waygates nearby. Oh, and there's the bowl. So they traveled, they zigzagged all over this place
Hmm.
in those months. Cool. All right, we'll have to play with that more. But as far as to the topic, there's plenty of steading within, a Trollocs couple days jog, and apparently they had endurance as well. Because it does talk about how they can run down a horse over distances quite a bit. Uh, oh, I think we brought that up, Scott. When you start thinking Asmodean isn't a bad guy, remember he killed his parents. We talked about the one who killed all his family.
Well, I think it's worse than that if I remember, because Lanfear says that. I don't remember when she says that at one point. Uh, and Rand's kind of thinking that she's trying to keep a wedge there between them so he doesn't grow too close to her. That uh, I don't think he just killed them. I think he captured them and brought them, like, if not necessarily before the Dark One, then before the bad guys, which makes you think they did not have a pleasant death. Uh, that was like his kind of tribute to say, yeah, I'm really one of you. I'm all in.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he not a good guy. But the way he comes across, and I don't know if Jordan did this on purpose, is he kind of comes across as sociopathic to me because he doesn't really seem to have, and maybe it's just because he's been defeated and so that's why he's so resigned, but he doesn't seem to have a ton of emotion. The only time we really see him emotional is um when Rand cuts him off from the Dark One,
Mm-hmm.
and then that freaks him out, and he's really emotional there,
Well, because
and
he
begging for
brought up in
help.
that comment it wasn't madness, it was because they opposed to him. Yeah, the
Mhm.
madness wasn't even around yet.
Yeah, yeah,
And but it is now, and he knows that. And his connection to the dark one was the only thing keeping him from it.
yeah. But that when he does talk, uh, like I think it's early in this book actually, isn't it, where he talks about how he it was the lure of immortality and endless music because he's strumming on the harp
Mm-hmm.
that, so he's willing to do the most horrible things in recorded human history for music. And he says it so nonchalantly. The way it comes across to me is it's so calm and nonchalant. I feel like Jordan's putting a bit of sociopathy in Asmodean here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have a feeling it wasn't just the music. I have a feeling it was the the fame that goes with it.
Yeah, I think he was. I think at some point somebody says that he was a famous composer.
Mm-hmm.
That yeah, he had composed music in the Age of Legends. All right.
But he didn't want to be famous posthumously like most composers are.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, that's all I got for this, and then we'll get back to Rand's storyline next time with lots of shenanigans.
Wait, I'm reading one more. kind of caught my. I decided to read Wheel of Time because I love Sanderson and he completed this series.
Yeah, I've never heard that, so you need new friends. But yeah, that would make me LOL as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll do it again next time. We didn't give anything that needs a disclaimer, I think. Next time on the docket is we talked about in group, out group,
Yeah.
and some of the current events that go along with it. Did you watch that documentary I sent you?
No, it's on my to you said that it would hurt my brain, so I hadn't looked at it yet.
Well, it's not that it would hurt your brain, it's just disturbing. And so, if anybody, we'll do a little jazz hands for spoilers on it, but if anybody wants to watch what I'm talking about, let me go back and find it real quick. I think it's called The Unexpected Film. Yeah, The Unexpected Film by Remy Edelecki. Uh, it's about human trafficking.
Ooh.
And it's very disturbing, but it actually fits into the discussion we were going to have. So it's 30 minutes. It's quite compelling and disturbing at the same time, which is when you're on a subject like that, if it's not disturbing, then it's not compelling enough. But yeah, that would, I think that's the homework if anybody follows both and wants to get the spoiler part of that as well. Any other topics?
Oh, that's all I got.
All right, cool. Well, we'll see you next time.
So long.